Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of the Inside Wayzata podcast. I am Zach Nelson, and today we are talking early learning. I have Michele Bedor, who is the Director of Early Learning, and she's going to give us an overview of the Wayzata Early Learning School, what it's all about, and maybe some things that might interest you. So thanks for joining us, Michele.
Thanks for having me.
So what is the Early Learning School? I think when most people think about Wayzata schools, they think of elementary, middle, high school, and they might not even know there is an Early Learning School. So what is it?
Yeah, they might not. So the Early Learning School is kind of twofold. Number one, the actual building of the Early Learning School is attached to Oakwood Elementary, and at that site we house our part-day preschool and all of our staff offices. So we have ECFE, which I know we're going to talk about in a little bit, and part-day preschool and full-day preschool. And our full-day preschool classrooms are actually in the 9 elementary schools, but they are still part of the early learning programs in the district.
So what ages is this, like birth to 5, basically as soon as you're born until you start kindergarten, you can participate in some sort of early learning programming?
Yeah, that's actually true. We have classes for babies in our ECFE program and infant toddlers. And then our preschoolers come to school when they're 2.5 by September 1st for what we call drop-off preschool, meaning mom and dad get to leave and go find something else to do for a short amount of time. So that's our 2-year-olds, 2.5-year-olds, 3-year-olds, and 4-year-olds.
So it's a wide range. I mean, for those with young kids, the difference between a baby, a newborn, to a 4-year-old in preschool is pretty big. So it's a wide variety. So you have to have a lot of flexibility in terms of your offerings.
Yeah, we do. So we start in our infants and toddlers with parent and child classes where they come together. We call it ECFE, Early Childhood Family Education. And the parents come with the kiddos. And for our infants, we don't separate. We stay together in the classroom, and they do about an hour and a half of fun, play, toys, thematic activities. And then as they grow a little older, we start to do gradual separation. And so the parents might leave for 5 to 10 minutes the first day. And eventually they're leaving for about 45 minutes of that hour and a half. And then they're meeting with a parent educator while our early learning teacher and para are with the kiddos.
Mm-hmm. So when you think about ECFE, that early childhood family education, being a parent of or caregiver for a young human is hard. It's challenging. What is like your overall goal with ECFE? Is it a combination of providing tools or making connections? Like what's the purpose?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. The purpose is multifaceted. So we want to provide an opportunity for our parents to come and have those conversations with a trusted adult who's gone to school and their job is to be a parent educator or early childhood teacher. So they have a strong knowledge base in child development and all the things that you may not know as a new parent with a baby or a toddler. And then I think the other piece of it is connecting to other parents who are going through a similar experience. And so we do age groupings. So the infants are together, and then 12 to 18 months and 24 months and so forth, so that when you're in class with 8 to 10 other families, you're starting to build that community connection as well. So you and I are both parents of a baby, and we can have conversations about what that feels like, what our struggles are, what our joys are, those kinds of things. They commonly start the class with joys and concerns, and parents will just talk about like what's gone well since the last time we were together and what am I really struggling with.
Yeah, we have young kids at home, and I feel like parenting can feel very isolating. Like in the moment, there's a lot of times when you're in the thick of it, whether they're sick or whether you're going through whatever issue, and it feels like you're alone and you're like, this can't be normal, or what's normal. So I feel like just having like a community to, go through that journey with to some degree is probably a huge benefit for families.
Yeah. I was just telling a story at lunch today about when I was home on maternity leave with, I don't even remember which kiddo, but I called my husband crying and said, I just want somebody to talk to and eat lunch with. And I think it's that social piece for parents because, babies are sleeping a lot and they're emotionally trying, but you also feel somewhat alone. And so I think that connection is important. I know lots of families who meet during ECFE and are like lifelong friends after that. So I think it's really a cool opportunity to kind of come together and meet other people in a similar situation. And not quite ready for that drop-off piece yet, right? Yeah. So we get there as we grow through ECFE, and we're in an infant class, and then one's class, and then a toddler class, and then we start thinking, oh, the families next door to our classroom are really doing that drop-off thing, and we're probably ready by then to start thinking about, well, I could run to the store while they're at preschool for 2.5 hours. So it's a gradual progression. Many of our families start in ECFE and then work their way towards drop-off.
Mm-hmm. So if someone is listening and I think most people would value some connection, but I think there's also a level of intimidation of, I think we inherently want to know how we're doing as parents when we go to anywhere, to the store or whatever. You kind of have these benchmarks in your head. What would you tell someone who's listening that is a little intimidated about getting in a room with other parents or caregivers of young kids and being a little nervous about being in that environment?
Mm-hmm. I think it can be intimidating because we judge ourselves based on what we see in other people. And I think our team does a really fantastic job of letting people show up how they need to be. And I've been in a lot of classes where there's a couple parents who are more listeners than talkers. And I think they're taking it in their own way. And sometimes we'll access the parent educator through a one-on-one parent education consultation type model because they're not as confident or their child is not developing in the same way. And so sometimes there's some angst about that. And we want our program to be open to all types of parents. Sometimes a language is a barrier. Sometimes my child is, developing differently. And that's a worry. Are they going to fit in? Do they feel like they belong? I would say we always are willing to let people try it and think about, if it doesn't work for you, what could we do differently? Or what could we offer you that's different for your family?
So we've talked a lot about the benefits for families and caregivers for these ECFE classes. What benefits do you see in the kiddos, even the young babies? Yeah,
my office is sort of connected to the baby classroom, so I hear when they're starting to separate, and it sounds heartbreaking because you have 7 or 8 of them crying. Sometimes that's a domino effect where one starts and then they're like, wait, everybody else is crying. I thought I was fine, but now I'm going to cry too. Yeah. But I do think for our infants and toddlers, like I said, we don't really separate until they're a little bit older and they start to understand that mom and dad aren't going to be there every moment. And so I think building that independence is what we're looking for as we progress kids from ECFE even into preschool. And we still have kids that cry when they get dropped off at preschool, and that's okay. We understand that they're going to do that and it's expected, and nobody's panicking about that. Oftentimes I'll go in or go by the classroom door and be like, thumbs up, thumbs down. Do you need a hand in here? And most of the time the teachers are like, we got it. They need to trust another adult other than their mom or dad. And I think it's really good development for kids to do that and start to meet other kids that are their age and start or iron out some of those social skills. Like, how do I play? How do I share a toy? What do I do when somebody has something I want? And oftentimes we get kiddos that don't have any siblings. So that's a harder piece to work out, that social emotional piece when you don't have anybody else at home other than mom and dad. And they usually let you have all the toys you want. So they're not fighting you over the blocks, but that piece of navigating other social situations is, I would say, is the primary focus for our programs.
Yeah. So ECFE, is there an age range where you kind of then shift more into preschool?
Yeah, really at 2.5 is the first time I would say you can bring your child to preschool. They have to be, like I said, 2.5 by September 1st is kind of a hard cutoff. Yeah. So We want them to start to learn some of those social emotional skills. I would say our 2-year-old program, that's the primary focus. We don't do a lot of academics. We do language building, vocabulary building, playing together, those kinds of things. It's pretty chillax, super fun. As we get closer to 3s and 4s, we start introducing some of those concepts.
Yeah. And so I think there's probably, there might be some people listening that are wondering, all right, now I'm getting into preschool and there might be different expectations of like what they're going to learn, right? Can you walk us through what some of the realities are of what they will learn as part of, the preschool? I know it's a wide range from 2 to 4, but what they might learn and some of the, I guess, myths that you encounter? Yeah,
I think primarily we use the creative curriculum in our preschool classrooms, and that's an inquiry-based curriculum. So the teacher is choosing a theme or a topic, so dinosaurs or lots of apples happening right now in our classroom. And then they take that theme and they build in all sorts of ways to explore apples. What do different apples taste like? Do the green ones taste different from the yellow ones, different from the red ones? All along the way, we're teaching those concepts of color, shape, size, and adding in some letters and some writing and all of that as kids are ready for it. It oftentimes looks like play. Like if you were to walk through our classrooms, you'd think, boy, the kids are just playing. But the purpose of what they're playing with and what's happening in that classroom is really involved in that exploration of whatever that theme is for the week. And they embed it in the circle time, so the stories we read, the songs we sing, the art project of the week, sometimes the snack if it fits in. Those kinds of things are all the learning activities at different stations. They're all wrapped around that single theme, which helps us then focus in on what are the things about this topic that we want the kids to learn. And in the end, it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, it almost sounds like it's playing within a structure. Like the structure feels like it's it's like that's the important piece for kiddos as you think about if you go just from like baby, toddler, and then all of a sudden they're in kindergarten, there's like what are some of the skills that they can learn in between then? And so I feel like that structured environment could be a huge benefit.
Yeah, I think oftentimes I hear kindergarten teachers talking about we know the kids came from an early ed program because they know how to do school, not so much the academics, but they know how to walk in somewhat of a line. I mean, it might not be straight, but kind of wobbly. But we know what it means to like walk in a line. We know what it means to sit and listen. We know what it means to eat snack at a table with other kids. So some of those soft social emotional skills are really the key for kids to be independent. The academics most often come on their own and they learn that. So you might be sitting on the carpet playing cars or blocks, and we're always building in that language, those words like bigger, smaller, words, color words, shape words. So the toys look like we're just playing, but there's purpose, and then the teachers are facilitating that learning.
Sure. So it sounds like there's a few different preschool options. It kind of varies by age. We've mentioned full day preschool. We mentioned part day preschool. Can you kind of lay out some of the differences in the different preschool options and how it might change, especially when you think about like full day versus part day preschool?
Yeah, that's a perception we continue to sort of navigate. Our full day preschool, the way I think of it in my head, is really a district childcare option. It's combined with Wayzata Kids. So we open at 7 and we close at 6. In the morning and the late afternoon, we do actually combine with Wayzata Kids for staffing reasons. So in one of our buildings, we have like 5 or 6 kids that come before school in the elementary. And that's a combination of pre-K and K-5. And so we really only have 1 or 2 staff in the morning that open together. And they do both preschool and Wayzata Kids. And then there's preschool time built into that, very similar to the 2.5 hours of our part day preschool. So from maybe 8 to 11:30 or 9 to noon, they're doing the similar things to part day where they're doing stations and they're doing story time or circle time. They're doing outdoor play. They're having a snack. They're doing an art project. And then the later part of the day is really lunch in the cafeteria, which is a whole nother set of skills that you need to navigate as a preschooler. Lots of help there. Yeah. And then they have a rest time. And then they start a little bit more like learning and things, and then they combine at the end of the day with Wayzata kids. So I think really we want parents to choose full day because they need childcare and they have kids maybe in that elementary that are already there. So if I have a 4-year-old and a second grader, that's a good pairing.
Okay. And then part day is just, it's like segments of full day preschool, right?
It's like 2.5 hours in the morning or 2.5 hours in the afternoon. The longest class we have is 3 hours, but the schedule is very similar for that learning portion of the day.
And it seems like it comes down to whatever families whatever they're going through in life, whether, you might have 2 working parents or you might have more flexibility with other caregivers that, that would allow you to select whatever works best. But yeah, it sounds like it's a pretty similar experience. It's just more fragmented in the part day.
Yep. And we have a lot of grandparents that bring, kiddos to part day preschool and nannies that bring kiddos and working parents that, just juggle their schedules so they can do it. So it does work. It is, it's available in all different ways. And we have different start and end times because our parking lot gets rather crowded. And we have different morning versus afternoon. And then number of days. So 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, kind of a wide variety of options to fit not only what parents can manage in their schedule, but what they can afford to do.
Yeah. So one component of the early learning school that I think is worth mentioning is the Connect at 3 program. Can you explain a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, so we rebranded our early childhood screening program a couple of years ago and started calling it Connect at 3 because what we want is for that early childhood screening to happen at 3 or as close to that as possible, not before.
So what is early childhood screening?
Early childhood screening is a one-time appointment where you come in. They would work with an early childhood teacher and they look at hearing, vision, height, weight, and then they do some developmental screening and looking at, is the child on track for their development, where they're at in their development. So it's comparative. So if I'm doing a screening at 3, I'm comparing that child to other 3-year-olds. If we're doing it at 4, 5, etc. So we really want them to come in early so we can catch unidentified problems. So maybe your kid's not seeing properly and we would send you to the eye doctor and then the kiddo can get glasses. And it's a really good place to start looking at are all of our kiddos on track in their development. And doing that intervention early matters because we don't want them to not be seeing, not be hearing, not to be developmentally on track. And the more time that goes by, the further behind they could be. So the purpose of the early childhood screening is really to catch those developmental issues early on so we can intervene. But we rebranded it Connect at 3 because we want it to be a starting point and not an ending point. So we're asking parents to join our Connect at 3 community, which is digital and online. And our hope is that they feel connected to the district from that jumping off point and that they don't have to wait to be enrolled in early learning school or kindergarten to feel like they're a valued student in the Wayzata public schools. So that's our goal, is to have families feel like they're connected to the district as soon as we can get them in. And then the second tier of that is to get that screening appointment.
Okay. So it's providing resources and information for families without asking them to commit to anything, essentially. Yeah.
You don't have to be an enrolled student at the early learning school to get our Connect at 3 newsletter.
Yeah.
You can sign up either through your screening appointment or just online to join. And then we send quarterly or maybe a little more often newsletters, and it would be district information about early learning programs that aren't just the early learning school. It could be, Tiny Kick Soccer or some of the other enrichment activities that we offer through the district that your family could participate in. Or we've had every year like a car seat clinic where the University of Minnesota and the Plymouth Police come together and they help you make sure your car seat's installed properly. So if you get in a crash, your child is safe. So we do some of those things that we make available to those families in Connect at 3.
All right, so we've hit ECFE, we've preschool, Connect at 3. We mentioned, the screening piece and making sure that students have the support they need. What else about the early learning school do people need to know?
I think one other thing that I think is important is that Wayzata has really embraced the Minnesota Department of Education's successful learner equation. And I think I hear a lot like, how will I know my kiddo is ready for kindergarten? Or what are you doing to get kids ready for kindergarten? And we want to flip the script because there is no ownership for children to be ready. The ownership is on the adults in the system to be ready. And so we say the only thing kids need to be ready for kindergarten is to be 5 on September 1st, to complete their preschool screening or early learning screening, and to have all their immunizations up to date. And so really the ownership is not on the kids. The ownership is on ready schools, ready communities, ready families. And when we put ideas on the kids to be ready, some of our kids aren't going to get there because they've got developmental issues, and that can feel like a failure for families, and we don't want that. Wayzata Public Schools is ready for any child that comes to kindergarten, regardless of they contain a set of skills that could be prescribed, and some kiddos will never get there. And so we don't want that failure model of, well, I'm going to hold my kiddo back because they're not reading or they can't write their name properly. That's our job to teach them, and we'll take them from wherever they're at and move them forward.
Yeah. What sort of partnership does the early learning school have with the elementary schools? Because that's obviously a very obvious transition from preschool or maybe even just connecting with resources to now you're 5 years old and starting kindergarten. So what does that look like?
Yeah. So I sit on the elementary principals monthly meeting, and we have lots of conversations. We do programming back and forth as much as we can. Our full day preschool classrooms are embedded in the elementaries, so they do the fun run and they do all of the elementary things. It's a great connector for us. I just have meetings with the principals when there's needs that arise, or we want to have conversations about things, or we're planning for students who might need an extra level of support as they're heading to K. We do a lot of those transitional planning meetings in the spring. And some of that is with families, and some of that is kind of prepping the system to be ready.
Yeah. So if we wanted to encapsulate all of it, when I say, why is that early learning school? What does that mean to you?
I think it's a fantastic place to be. It's super fun. We have amazing, wonderful staff who show up every day ready to just help kids feel like they belong. And I think that's for us, number one, that kids feel like it's a place where they want to go. I see kids coming every morning and they're hop, skipping, and jumping and sometimes running down the halls, and parents are like, don't run. I'm like, let them run. I love the enthusiasm. That's what we want. We want kids to feel like this is a place where they can trust the adults and things are fun and they're learning.
And if someone's listening, they have young kiddos at home, they're a little nervous, how would you recommend they get started or find more information? Yeah,
on our website, you can go on our website and there's all sorts of information about all our different programs. If you click on register, you can see where we still have open classes, probably mostly in the afternoon. And then I think scheduling a tour, we do a lot of those. So parents can come in and see it in action and feel the vibe. I had a grandma say to me, this is the happiest place I've ever been. And I'm like, yes, that's what we want. We want people to be happy. And I think sometimes that nervousness can be calmed just by seeing what's happening in the building and getting a real feel for it. And just knowing that, trust us to help your kiddo, and we understand they might cry. Sometimes the parents cry too. I mean, the first day of school, there was a lot of crying, adults and kids together. But, I had a mom that was really having a hard time on the first day of school. Her kiddo was great. Never shed a tear. I think there's that piece that, as a parent, your first time you're dropping off a kiddo and not staying can be really challenging, but we're willing to check in and let you know how they're doing. And most of the time the kids are doing great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think most parents remember. I remember the first time dropping off our kids at daycare, and it's a lot. I mean, it's as much of a transition for families as it is for kids, and I love how the early learning school kind of brings you along with like, all right, we're going to start with classes together, and then we're going to like slowly work in the separation piece, and then we're going to do more of that preschool learning, and it just seems like a natural progression into the school system. Like it seems like a really cool thing.
Yeah, we want to help parents along the way. We haven't even put it out there yet, but we're starting the individual parent coaching. So that'll be part of our coming soon on our website.
Great.
So we're excited about that, where they can schedule a one-on-one appointment with the parent educator to talk about something more private.
Yeah.
And that works really well for some parents to, even if their kiddos are older and they're struggling with that separation piece, we want them to feel comfortable.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think there's, like my son won't eat vegetables,
Mine either, and he's 26. So.
That gives me a lot of hope.
Sorry.
No, that's great. So go to the website. It's wayzataschools.org/early learning. You can go to, it's under the schools tab if you're on the homepage, and also that Connect at 3 tab on the early learning website. That's where you can sign up and just, you can kind of dip your toes in the water. What is this all about? What opportunities are available?
Yep. If you're confused, call, because we take a lot of phone calls. Parents can walk in and just, ask for information. We have printed copies of things in our office. So
yeah, and there's emails, earlylearning@wayzataschools.org. So there's, the team there is always happy to help.
Yeah, they're fantastic. Right. They have good support staff too. So
yeah. Well, thanks, Michelle. I appreciate it.